Have you had enough of the madness? Well, as March winds down, we're breaking down everything Runnin Rebels and Lady Rebels. The panel is ready for tip-off. You know what that means. Sin City Beat starts right now.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
Welcome in. Thanks for joining us on Sin City Beat. I'm Mike Davis. Thanks for hanging out. So Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the sports reporters leading the charge. On today's show, we're jumping into the madness of March. On my panel, we got Case Kiefer, assistant sports editor of the Las Vegas Sun. We have our very own sports reporter and host, Paloma Villacana, with Fox 5 Las Vegas. And he's back, Steve Cofield, the host of Cofield and Company on ESPN Las Vegas. Great to have you guys all here with us. So let's dive in. The Runnin Rebels end their season with a loss to the 1 seed Seton Hall in the quarterfinals of the NIT. And after nice wins against Princeton and Boston College, UNLV gets beat 91-68 by a team that many thought was snubbed out of the NCAA tournament. Now the Runnin Rebels finished the season with 21 wins, the most for the program since 2012 and the 2013 season. But on the bright side, this was UNLV's first postseason appearance in 11 years and their first postseason win in 16 years. So Case Kiefer, would you classify this season as a success?
I think a success might be going just a little too far when they so badly wanted to get back into the tournament. I will say that going into this offseason feels like a little more positivity than any time in recent memory, winning those 2 NIT games. And they didn't go out the way they wanted, getting blown out by Seton Hall, not really competitive, but that was a really tough spot. They flew to New Jersey twice in 3 games in a week. So they weren't competitive in the last game, but I think you look at some of the pieces they might have coming back. You look at how well they played the last 2 months. I do feel like there's a little momentum for this program.
So beating Princeton, beating Boston College, then losing in the quarterfinals, how much did that travel component really hurt this team?
I think it hurt them. They hit the wall. They hit the wall defensively. It was probably one of their 5 worst defensive games of the year. They looked tired coming out. I thought Keelan Boone looked tired. They did a really bad job on the back end of the defense in terms of roll coverage, and also anytime there was penetration, the help man, the third man in, just didn't seem to be there. And they got kind of beat up offensively. This was very much like a San Diego State team they were playing in terms of big, powerful guards. And De'Don Thomas got pushed around a lot and had trouble turning the corner. So those were the biggest elements. But defensively, that was the problem. Just bad coverage and bad communication.
Also, the advantage of playing on your home court. That's an advantage in the postseason. I mean, we saw UNLV turn it up against Boston College and an electric Thomas and Mack. And then last night on the road in New Jersey, like we said, that travel factor, that home field advantage, home court advantage of Seton Hall playing at home. Those guys are rested. They came out energized. UNLV, like we mentioned, looked a little tired flying back and forth across the country.
Look at the 2 games last night, or on whatever it was, Wednesday. UNLV flies cross country 2,500 miles, gets blown out. VCU had to go all the way to Utah, 2,100 miles. They lost by 20.
Right.
So I will point out to people, by the way, because the internet chatter gets ridiculous. 1 game does not make an entire season. I even saw Seth Greenberg on the broadcast suggest that the Mountain West Conference was overrated. And for Seth Greenberg, a former coach, to not layer it in there that travel is a factor. 1 game does not rep what a team did all season or what a conference is.
Okay, so when we're recapping the entire season, how proud are you of this group? I mean, do you feel, especially a guy like DJ Thomas, do you feel like he should have shown out a little bit more in this postseason play?
I think he played well in the middle game. The other 2 games, he struggled a little bit. Remember, the guy's a freshman, and I'm not here to apologize for him, but he had a tremendous season. I think he was a little bit tired, and as Paloma knows, there's been bootgate at different points of the season. He's been wearing a walking boot as a preventative measure all year, so who knows if that was dinged up. He kind of hit the wall as well. But for a freshman at 18 years old, he had a tremendous season. And let me tell you, if you were to make a list of, say, point guards that Power 5 programs could grab after a freshman year, he's probably top 5 in the country of guys you'd want to grab and build your program around. And I'm glad you said the possible players, I think you said, that could come back. That's one of the biggest challenges. Every year you have to re-recruit the guys you actually want on your team.
And now we're seeing these fifth-year seniors, want to make a push for the postseason, want to play in the NCAA tournament. It's their last year of college ball. Kevin Kruger had 5 fifth-year seniors on the team. So for them to give it their all, Keelan Boone and Caleb Boone, they really wanted to run it back in the NCAA tournament. So I think that's what we're going to see nowadays is these older teams that really want to make a push for it in the postseason.
Okay, 1 minute left here. What about Kruger? What do you think? What kind of a job did Kruger do this year?
Well, not to get too deep into coach speak, but I think the best thing you can say for him is that this team rallied. They dealt with a lot of adversity, really having to go on the road all this much. It dates back to the terrible beginning of the season. I think there's a lot of teams that wouldn't have rallied back from that, especially the 32-point loss to Air Force. I mean, they were great the final 2 months after going through all that. So I think Kevin Kruger really improved his job security, really gave you a little bit more to look forward to at the way they ended the season, which I think was a positive.
All right.
He
Interesting.
did a good job. But it's a year-to-year deal. That's the way it is in college basketball. Now you see big hires out there getting millions of dollars. The Louisville job was a very hard job. They had to go like 8 dudes down before someone took the job, because every year you have a little bit of equity, but you got to get to the tournament.
Hey, it's what have you done for me lately, like everything else in life, right? All right, so guys, coming up, where do the Runnin' Rebels go from here? How do the Runnin' Rebels get back to the Final Four? We got the answer after these words.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
Welcome back to Sin City Beat. Well, the glory years of the Runnin' Rebels feel so far away, yet somehow true fans can taste something good is brewing. In 1977, just 7 years after joining Division I, the Rebels, led by Coach Jerry Tarkanian, made their first Final Four. From there, the guys made history with Final Four appearances in '87 and '91, and of course, they won the whole thing in 1990. Now, Steve Cofield, you know this better than anybody. What can this program do to get back to the good old days of the Runnin' Rebs?
I mean, if we want to talk, brass tacks here, the stuff they did, that Jerry Tarkanian did. One, he's a great coach, great defensive coach. The style worked, but they also competed with the big boys of college basketball. What does that mean? That means having a budget to build a team. And in the past, it was illegal. You were cheating. Now it's above board, and you have to have a name, image, likeness, budget. If you don't have a high-level budget, it makes it a lot tougher. You have to nail, really good personnel judgment. But a lot of what goes on now to keep your team together and then acquire players has to do with your budget. And you see reports out there that 6 Big East teams have a budget that's at $2 million or more.
Right.
Louisville was rumored to have $4 million in NIL budget to put together a team on the table for Scott Drew from Baylor. He didn't take the job, but we're talking millions and millions of dollars. I think you need probably $800,000 plus to be a top 3 program.
Wow.
NIL budget-wise in the Mountain West Conference. I think San Diego State is there. I think New Mexico is there. I think UNLV is around there, but they need even more budget for this. And I know this isn't fun talk, but this is reality now until they change the rules, if they ever change the rules.
Is this taking some of the fun and the beauty and that essence that we love about March Madness out of the current tournament? Do you feel that?
That's a great
I don't necessarily think so. Just you could say that this year. There's been not many upsets. It's kind of been all the teams we've expected. A lot of the teams with those big budgets are there. But just look a year ago, there was a lot of craziness going on. I think there always will be value in teams doing it a different way to build up to that. But I've been saying this for years. It's going to fall on deaf ears, but I'll say it again anyway. I just think we need to lower the expectations a little bit. Take baby steps. You're not going to overnight go from where UNLV is now to competing with, I know everyone wants them to be Gonzaga. You're not going to build that budget right away. Why don't we get back to where it was, 13, 14 years ago, making the tournament every year, Thomas and Mack packed under Lon Kruger. Get there, then maybe you can take more measured steps to get to the top of college basketball like everyone wants.
But the NIL is a real factor. I mean, how much are they going to have to pay DJ Thomas to stay at UNLV? How much are they going to have to pay these players to stay at the school, which is completely something we've never talked about before. Right. Is, how much do I have to pay you to keep you on this roster, which is just incredible to talk about.
I'll throw it out there. I mean, let's be realistic here. If you are paying the athletes, you have to make good decisions. So then you have to look and go, okay, who's on my bench, who didn't work out, how much was I paying them? Because the pay goes deeper than just the top 3 guys on a team. And I'm glad you mentioned Gonzaga, because we always talk about Gonzaga as some upset story.
Right.
Gonzaga and Creighton are here because they bought themselves to the spot. They have massive NIL budgets. Gonzaga's won on the recruiting trail to the tune, of millions rumored last year for Drew Timme in his final year. Chet Holmgren was the #1 player in the country. So that's the way you do it now. And as a mid-major, and those schools are still mid-majors, even though the Big East has added a bunch of mid-majors, you have to have that budget. And I know it takes some of the fun out of it, but let's talk reality. That's what it was in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. The Blue Bloods have always had a budget. The Big East didn't arise from nowhere with their TV deal without money. Look at all the programs and how many times they've gotten a little bit of trouble with the NCAA. They all had budgets. That's why they were getting elite players. Syracuse was getting guys from California. Why would they want to go to Syracuse, New York?
Right.
Money and winning. And Jim Boeheim was a good coach.
Yeah, the one-on-one with the Gonzaga, I think you saw local great Julian Strawler now with the Nuggets.
Right.
He ended up staying an extra year. He had such a sweet NIL deal. I know that was part of it. He's a kid that considered UNLV. That's just the reality right now. They're not at the level of some of these other programs, and it's not going to happen overnight. It might take a little while.
All right. I'm just waiting for my NIL deal. I don't know where that is. All right, guys, next we're shifting our focus to, yes, the Lady Rebels. Lots to discuss there. Stick around. All right, get this. The Lady Rebels entered March Madness as the 20th ranked team in the country, earning an automatic bid into the tourney as a 10th seed after winning the Mountain West Conference title for the third straight year, I might add. Now, after a record of 30-3, becoming the first team in Mountain West history to win both the regular season and tournament championship, the Lady Rebs got knocked out of the first round after an 87-32 loss to the 7th-seeded Creighton. So Paloma at 30-3, 17-1 in the Mountain West, back-to-back conference titles, yet 0 NCAA tournament wins to show for that. How concerning is all of this?
Well, I think the Lady Rebels were, heartbroken after that game because they did believe they could beat Creighton. Creighton was a veteran team. I mean, those starting five were all seniors, and a really, really good team as we saw on Saturday, I believe it was. So what do the Lady Rebels need to do to get over that hump? It's so hard to say because they have such a talented roster.
Yeah.
But really, it was Desiree Young who put on a show. I think she dropped 30 points against Creighton. But man, I just feel bad for the Lady Rebels because they were so dominant in the Mountain West, and that is questionable. Like, is the talent they're going up against good talent enough to compete in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
They've lost to Arizona, they've lost to Michigan, and now they lost to Creighton in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So, if you're a college basketball player, you have to ask yourself, with the transfer portal, like we've been talking about, if you go to another league or if you go somewhere else, is that better competition?
Right.
Is that a better situation for you rather than winning these blowout games in the Mountain West? So much respect for Lindy LaRocque, though, and the history she's making with her team. As we're seeing right here, number 33, the freshman point guard, Amarachi Kimpson, she's, the future of the Lady Rebels. So she does have some freshmen on this team that are, the future of this team. But that is the thing. Can they get over that hump in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
And no doubt, Lindy LaRocque is a Tara Vanderveer product. She's used to being in the NCAA tournament. So that is the big test. Can they make it past the first round?
And what can you do? Because 30 wins, that's nothing to look down at.
Yeah.
30 wins, that's a great season.
There's no way to get around it. This loss was devastating. This looked like the year. This looked like the team with Desiree Young. But I'm going to channel the fan perspective for one point, because I know I kind of give them an underhanded jab last segment, but I think they have a point this time. The outcry is, what is with this seeding? Everything it looked like they should have been better than a number 10 seed. Not only do they get a 10 seed, they go against Creighton, who, you look at some of the analytics, were underseeded too. So this was just really bad luck to me. I think as long as Lindy LaRocque is here, great coach, she's getting the players. Maybe sometimes that draw goes a little bit better for you. You get the luck and you get the win. I think they're on the path. I think that the NCAA really did a number on them this year, and it was unfair.
Really? Okay, Steve, what do you feel about this?
First of all, she's done a great job. To win at this level is incredible. But to Paloma's point about the Mountain West Conference, I think Lindy LaRocque has to do even more in the non-con to kind of make up for some of the poor play and the poor net rankings around the conference. So she's going to have to get more aggressive, and it sucks, but that means probably going on the road exclusively, and maybe you can get a couple of neutral court games, but they probably need to have 5 or 6, top 35 games against named programs in the non-con. You really can't play any soft touches, and they need to, lift up their recruiting. It's very good now, but I think they need to get a little bigger in the post eventually, but especially on the wings. Their coverage on defense against Creighton just wasn't good enough. They made 15 three-pointers, so they couldn't get out to the three-point line enough, but I think they need to get bigger on the wings. But to Paloma's point, Amarachi Kimpson is the future of the program.
Elite.
She's freaking awesome. They have a good team. They just need to get a little bigger and a little more athletic. They're going to win the Mountain West Conference. They're going to be a top 3 team in the Mountain West Conference every year, but that next level, to be to be an elite mid-major, you've got to schedule aggressively. Otherwise, your net ranking is never going to rep anything really high.
Gotcha. And Paloma, as we're wrapping this up, just tell us, I mean, how concerned are you about the transfer portal element with this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you do to win championships. You know, you want to win championships, which they have in the Mountain West. But like I mentioned, the talent of going up. I mean, when you watch women's basketball, it is so amazing to see how much talent there is in this country, at LSU, at South Carolina. And maybe, yeah, I mean, if you've played 3 years in the Mountain West, maybe you do want to face other talent to get that experience, to go play and win in the NCAA tournament, which the Lady Rebels haven't been able to do. So Lindy LaRocque is an amazing coach, and no doubt, whatever players stay or leave, they'll be successful.
All right. It's interesting stuff. Yeah, I mean, transfer portal, all that stuff, it's just crazy what's happening at the March Madness level. Real quickly, before we wrap this up, I just want to go back a little earlier, the NIT situation. How do we feel about the NIT in general? Is that a great thing? Is that a no-brainer for organizations, programs to take part in?
It's not a no-brainer. If your players don't want to play and they're not going to be motivated, there's no sense in going.
Yeah.
UNLV was motivated. I think this is going to be one of the last years of the NIT. I think we're going to have expansion, and they may eliminate the NIT. And if it doesn't, then the NIT is probably going to go back to a tournament where they embrace the smaller schools that lose out in their conference tournament. But yeah, I would go if my team wants to go and if I feel like it's a building. Good building deal.
All right, interesting. All right, I just wanted to touch upon that real quickly. Okay, guys, obviously this panel is all fired up. Good thing, though, we're not done yet. Yes, there's more Sin City Beat right after this. Well, I can't remember a year of March Madness where there was so much, if not more, enthusiasm for the women's bracket rather than the men's, with Caitlin Clark, Juju Watkins, Paige Beckers, Angel Reese, and so much more. The brand name and recognition for the ladies is absolutely higher than the men's, in my opinion. I mean, how many times have you seen that Caitlin Clark State Farm commercial, right? I mean, so Paloma, how exciting has this been, and is this really a new normal for the women's side of the bracket?
Well, we've been talking about NIL this entire show, and I think that's what we're seeing, the NIL for women, just the branding, the commercials with Caitlin Clark,
right.
The fact that they're on every single brand, Nike, Gatorade. I mean, you're seeing them everywhere on your phone because they're creating those NIL deals. And also with NIL deals comes talent too. I mean, we're watching a historic women's basketball season with Caitlin Clark, Juju, who's a freshman. Even at UNLV, we've seen some really great stuff from the Lady Rebels too. So the fact that these NIL deals are happening because these are just like mega superstars in the college basketball world. I mean, I was in Dallas over the weekend. I counted like 3 Caitlin Clark jerseys in the airport, worn by men, worn by women. So that is something I've never seen before in my life.
I mean, she's the biggest figure in March Madness this season. Absolutely, it's almost like Beatlemania to a degree, right? I mean, they're selling out throughout the season when opposing teams are playing Iowa.
Yeah, I do think this year is, an all new height, and I think it goes back to the end of last year. You saw some of the numbers the championship game did with Iowa and LSU. It was just through the roof. So I don't necessarily think it's going to keep going up every year, but I think long term, women's college basketball, especially, is a buy on. I think it's going to be a valuable property for the networks, for the streaming services. I think it's definitely something to watch, and just the quality of the game, I think is so high now. And I think a lot of people that maybe have tuned out women's basketball now catch it and go, wow, they really know what they're doing. It's beautiful. They pass well, they play well. I feel like the quality of the game's really gone up, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm excited for a lot of this stuff. I mean, what about even just the job Asia Wilson's former coach, Dawn Staley, has? I mean, are we going to get to the point where, I mean, listen, I would take, Caitlin Clark on the Knicks or Sixers right now. But I'm saying I think we're going to see like a Dawn Staley coaching an NBA franchise soon.
Possibly. It could happen. It's a big wall to break down. On the men's versus the women's, listen, male players don't stay 4 years. If they do, they can turn into big stars. There used to be a lot more recognizability. Right. It's a new flow of players. Plus, they don't stay in one spot, so it's hard for people to know where they are. Caitlin Clark is a superstar, and to your point about the NIL, I mean, she's earning big NIL dollars, and probably the biggest female, except for Libby Dunn in gymnastics at LSU. You've also got Kim Mulkey, who's incredibly likable or dislikable. Yeah. You've got Dawn Staley with a dominant program that is now taking out the LSU team that I thought would be one of the greatest teams ever, but they can't get around the corner. So you have great stories that way. It's going to do gigantic numbers. It'll do really well. I think Juju Watkins down the road will be the next one who has a chance to be a Caitlin Clark type player. But the men's game still has a big part in all of this in terms of the numbers, and they still get the lion's share of the money. But it's good for women's basketball. And hell, the Big Three just offered, and I think it's a PR stunt, but the Big Three just offered Caitlin Clark, hey, here's $5 million to play. You only have to show up 8 times, maybe some playoff appearances, but it's during the WNBA season, so she's not going to do that. But the point is, they did it. They feel like, hey, hooking our wagon to Caitlin Clark, a female player, is the best thing for pub that we can do.
And I actually want to expound upon that real quickly. So Ice Cube, yes, gives that offer to Caitlin Clark. I mean, let's just say for a second, would she be crazy to take that?
Yes. Yes. I mean, for the money, I guess no, but there's a big downside to doing it.
And what's that downside?
I don't think she'd be competitive even against the older guys. I think it's so big and physical, and Kenya Martin was saying the other day on a podcast, it's like prison ball. Like, it's really rough. The older guys don't move as well as they used to, so there's a lot of rough play. I think anytime you cross over with males and females, it's very dangerous. There's a downside.
Yeah.
But this is all good press for Las Vegas, Nevada, the home of the 2-time WNBA champions, the Aces. I mean, just talking about all of this women's basketball, the $5 million offer to Caitlin Clark is just all going to have a positive trickle-down effect to the WNBA.
How about this? Run this by the Aces, because I think it'll irk them. I think Caitlin Clark goes into the WNBA. She's the biggest star the league has, and I think she's also going to kill it. There are already whispers around the WNBA like, oh, it's going to take her time to adjust. I think she goes in, averages 25 points a game. I think she's going to be awesome. And the biggest star. Almost, you know what I'm going to compare it to? Almost like when Tiger Woods came out on the scene in golf, and there were older guys who were like, who's this guy? Why is he getting all the attention? Dummies, this helps you. It's going to raise the whole game, and look how much more money golfers made the last 30 years because of Tiger Woods. But I think there will be some resistance, which is a good thing. You should have a competitive nature to fight back on, if you're a WNBA player, people telling you that this rookie's going to come in and dominate.
No, biggest star, no doubt, but we might have to make a friendly wager. I'm taking under 25 points per game or rookie season.
Okay, so we need a 30-minute show on Caitlin Clark.
Yes, we really
all day
do.
long. All day long.
I think we'll get State Farm, the sponsor, probably. I love that though, Steve. I think that's the perfect comparison I've heard all. I think the mania around her is Beatlemania, but I think it's the Tiger Woods effect. It helped golf, and look what Caitlin Clark is doing for women's basketball. I think it's an amazing thing.
There's a thought that the WNBA could move on from ESPN, get a second TV deal. That's how big her impact could be. Actually get big TV money.
We're going to have to do a whole Caitlin Clark show one next time. Guys, I want to thank my great panel, Steve, Case, Paloma. I'm Mike Davis. This is what we do. We do deep dives. We'll see you next time on Sin City Beat.